The following program is paid for by the Charlie Butler team.
Good Sunday morning, Tri-State. This is the Charlie Butler Real Estate Show, and I'm Charlie Butler, joined by my cast of four. And I'm thrown off a little bit by the airing conversation. I almost said right there.
I know you
just
did.
about did, Charlie.
Yeah.
Mindy and I and David were like, "Oh no!"
Oh, but I wonder how we can incorporate that in here with
I'll let you work on that one.
Let's not.
Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I'm Charlie Butler. It's been good doing this show for the last 8 years, but and to my left, of course, is the regional director for Churchill Mortgage, David Crow. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Tri-State. We're sitting here fumbling. They have such an excellent green room here at the studio with the excellent food and beverages. So it's led to some fun conversation before we go live on the air here. I love it.
Well, at least they've got free stuff outside here that we can pick up if we want to. Whatever's on that table out there is ours, right, Bobby?
Absolutely right.
And next, David, the president of Butler DeArmond Real Estate Network, which owns the Charlie Butler team, is Candace DeArmond. Good morning, Candace.
Good morning, Charlie. Good
How are
morning,
you?
David.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're taping a week in advance now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we're doing good.
I think we're doing okay.
I think we're doing okay.
I always feel bad because you haven't announced Mindy yet, and I didn't say hi to Mindy. So hi, Mindy.
Hi, Candace.
Okay. Well, you got Mindy was coming up next.
I know, but I was the third, so I had to. But I ruined the surprise. Mindy's here too.
Okay.
I'll run this.
Wah, wah.
And-
Sorry, everybody. I'm still
And
here.
then next to Candace, left, right, whichever way you're looking at it, doesn't really matter.
The other left.
Is Mindy. I almost always say Malinsky. I knew Mindy way longer as Malinsky than I've known her as Woodward.
That's very true. Yeah.
But it is Mindy Woodward, and she is happily married, so she's not.
At least this week. No,
At least right at this moment. You don't have a neck tattoo, do you?
I do not know.
Okay.
Does Dan talk about rights?
He does not talk about rights. No. He has tattoos, but he does not have one on his neck.
Okay.
Dang it.
Where's he got one at?
He's got them on his forearms. He's got one on his chest, and then there's one like right here on his shoulder.
Okay. Any interesting ones?
No, I mean other than his unfortunate dead ex-wife's name. But
Well, it's not funny. Where do I go?
I love Charlie's like, that's not funny, and then just cracks up.
Well, Mindy's the one that sees it all
I
the time, and
mean,
she's cracking
I'm
up.
just saying. I'm not mad at it.
Candace is
We
trying-
all have
Candace is
baggage
trying to
later in
hold it
life,
in.
don't we?
Look, it's a thing.
Yes.
Candace is doing a very poor job of holding it in.
I moved my microphone and everything. I'm like, oh no.
And Bobby's over here refusing to talk because he thinks it's funny, but he's not going to say a word. So, Mindy, I know you told us last week, and I don't really think there's been any big changes, but anything on the foreclosure market?
I mean, we're still kind of hanging in there. There's several listings that I have that I'm waiting on. There's been an increase in price opinions and inspections, and banks just wanting to know what they have.
So, Mindy, what does that mean when there's we talk about price? You go out and you do the price opinions.
Yes.
So, for those that don't know, what does that mean?
So basically, I just go take pictures of the house and
On behalf of the bank.
on behalf of the bank and kind of let them know, here's what it looks like. Does it need repairs? Are people still living in it? And here's what the value of it would be in the current condition.
Is there one you can think of from recently, a good story that I know you're kind of in the process now, but that you haven't talked about on the air?
There was one that it was a regular client that we've worked with for a while, and they sent me to this house, and I didn't realize it had been on fire, and the entire roof had caved in on it.
Which state?
This was in Indiana. This was,
Okay, never mind. I had a Kentucky recent. Keep going.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it was actually in Oakland City, and I could only go in one door, and take pictures in the basement. Like I walked in about a foot and I took pictures and I got the heck out of there because I wasn't convinced the ceiling wasn't going to cave in on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy.
And anybody listening last week, and by the way, hello to David, friend of mine who went to his 50th class reunion. Is actually my 10th, but I just kind of showed up to 50th.
I think you erased the number.
Yeah, but anyway, David was telling me about he always listens to us every Sunday. He's in Southern Illinois.
Awesome.
And his radio cut out in the middle of one of the stories, so I had to fill in.
Oh no! Oh yeah.
Yeah, and one of the stories we were telling, and I was going somewhere with this, Mindy. The house on fire.
The house caving in.
Yeah,
the
so
roof
the house,
melted.
It was not what we expected at all. Let's
Yeah,
just say that.
And then you got one that just recently got cleaned out.
Yes, that was an interesting story too. So, to everyone listening, do not do land contracts with people because you do not have any kind of recourse if the person you are paying doesn't pay the mortgage. So this was a situation where this guy had lived in this house probably 10 years, was paying the payment to the owner. The owners died. The house was supposed to be taken care of by the daughter, who just said, I don't really care. Didn't make the payment. House gets foreclosed on. He's like, but I have a contract. It's like, but it's not valid.
Exactly.
Exactly.
The bank now owns your house.
Owns the house you're living in
owns the
and been
house you're
paying
living
on,
in
but
and
you
been
have
paying
no
on
title
forever.
deed ownership to it.
And it was just one of those situations where he had everything he owned, everything was valuable, everything was in the yard, and it took about 2 months to get it cleaned out completely.
Oh my gosh.
After he was at the house and not at the house, we had the sheriff go over there. He kept not being there. They finally sent a writ that said, if anybody is here, we're going to arrest them. Because he just kept blocking everything that we were trying to do. And now it's all cleaned out. So,
Wow.
So we'll be
Tough situation.
it'll be
Very tough.
Be listed soon. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to ask, I know from my standpoint, and I won't go into it, but people always, can I buy that foreclosure with no money down and so forth? And it gets a little complicated. You all see a lot of the offers which come in from realtors,
Yes.
or even your own clients. Do you ever see or very often see an FHA, a VA, or USDA loan used to purchase a foreclosure?
sometimes, but it depends on the property.
That is what I've shared with them because I, too, have bought foreclosures at the courthouse steps in the past, and they were great homes. I mean,
Right.
some of them were only a six-year-old home in a new neighborhood. So it wasn't, but I've shared with them most foreclosures when you get into government loans, it's either a conventional loan or cash. And then they start describing how run down and so forth. And I quickly dispel that you're not going to get an FHA or VA.
I mean, we had one in Corydon, Kentucky.
I was thinking the one in Mount Vernon.
Yeah, that one too. So we did one in Corydon, Kentucky, and those people did a Kentucky housing loan on it.
Well, which would either been an FHA or conventional through Kentucky Housing. They have both options, just like Indiana. But if it was an FHA, the home had to be in good shape then.
Or 403K. We had one in Mount Vernon
Yeah.
that they did a 403K.
203K.
Yeah, the
203K.
203K, yeah.
Okay, well, somebody can have that loan. I'm not kidding.
I have still never done one of
It
those.
was super interesting.
Kimberly and I did one together.
You have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It took 3 months.
Yes.
Well, that was quick. Kimberly and I took 9 months.
Yes. That's why I
Yeah.
abruptly said they can have that loan.
Yeah, I've still yet to ever do one of those.
The whole
But let's explain to people what a 203K is.
So it's an FHA loan. That's the first thing. But it's one of those that it's a government offer loan. I will say there are certain banks that have a renovation loan department. So the people who work in that department, that is all they do all the time. The average, I'll call myself average now, the average loan officer on the street, originator, there is so much to be done properly. You have to, the person buys the home. So we'll do that. They do an initial appraisal that says, like what Mindy was referring to earlier, This is what the home's valued at today, as is. Now, in the loan, they can build in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 for future updates on the home.
Mm-hmm.
Then, in a perfect world, the person buys the home, the money's set aside, all the renovations are done, a final appraisal is done to make sure the home's worth what it should be, completed, and then you basically have the loan moving forward at that point. The problem is I blew right through that whole thing of estimates, contractors. You have to have, that's where most people are like, I'm going to do the work myself.
Oh yeah,
That doesn't work with those loans.
No.
You have to have a general contractor. You have to have absolute bids. You have to have people with workman's comp, insurance in place. The lender will manage the disbursements out. It's kind of like a construction loan on new construction. You give the contractor, through the 4 or 5 payments through the building process, so it's paid out. But as an originator, a loan officer, it would be on me to track down every contractor, all the insurance, all the stuff that's involved, and I graciously move that over because there are certain banks that only have a true renovation department, and their staff will chase down all that paperwork.
Yeah,
but they're not easy to acquire, and they're not smooth. And Charlie, you mentioned 9 months. I just hear nightmares associated with that.
It was not a smooth transaction. I'm grateful that we got to the end, but it was not smooth. But I learned a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, we had to meet with the HUD consultant,
Yes,
who comes in and they go through everything and say, this is what you have to fix. This is how much it's going to cost. Then my buyer met with the contractor and he did an estimate, and they sent all of that in. Everything gets figured out. They put it in the loan, figure out if like the numbers are going to match. And then they go, okay, it's going to cost us $20,000 for this and $40,000 for this. And we were arguing at some point over 25 cents.
In the way the document was
the way
written.
that's documented.
Yes.
And my guy was just like, are you kidding me?
Nope.
It's a quarter. But it had to match.
Everything has to match.
Everything had to match. And so at the closing, I handed him a quarter. I said, hey, man, I think you need this.
Well, I can remember several years ago, and Mindy, do you remember, who was the company that used to do HUD properties? We could bid on them, and we figured out their system.
It wasn't Sage Acquisitions.
No, it was farther back.
It was before that.
Yeah. But Dave Herman, who we
Yes.
Dave, I told Dave one day, I said, I think I figured this out, because that was back then. You could go back and look at old data of bids they accepted and bids they rejected, which you can't do anymore. So I spent a weekend, playing with that and doing. So I said, Dave, let's see if this works. And Mindy's quarter made me think of this. I thought I knew what they would take. It was all automated. Mm-hmm. We made the bid for a dime less, and they countered us a dime higher.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
And Charlie, I'm glad you said that, because it simply shows there's absolutely no emotion attached to it, because over the years I've walked through this with people, because you're slow to get a response. And folks, if you're driving down the road listening and thinking, I'm going to buy that foreclosure and I'm going to use very little of my money to do it, I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just a lot more challenging. But when they get into the process, people are like, they won't respond or they haven't. And I think I've heard this so many times. I don't think they like me. And
Yeah.
I hear that all the time.
Boy, listen to all
I
those
guess they
lines.
didn't like my offer.
Yeah, I'm like,
Care about that.
Yeah.
there is absolutely zero emotion attached to this transaction. You are a file either on a desk or in a computer. The numbers either match or they don't. The numbers either work out in favor for them or they don't. And that's it. And there's no urgency attached to it. They'll get to you when they get to you. And so,
Because a lot of them have like hundreds of them. Like the asset managers that I work with have hundreds of properties that they're dealing with.
yes, absolutely.
So I'm just like at the bottom of the stack.
You
right
just
now.
when your number's up, we'll deal with your file.
We'll get you.
Yeah. But there's zero emotion attached to the whole transaction.
No, it's all a business deal.
Candace, I'm sure, is dealing with this right now, because we represent a local credit union. and they are trying to buy a bank one of the large banking corporations.
Okay.
Is vacant with them now. They don't care. I mean, they'll get to it whenever they, I mean, the credit union wants it.
Yeah.
They're local. They want it. But this national bank, when they get around to it, they'll get around to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the moral of the story. If you're driving down the road, listening to us right now and having that thought, it is not a fast process. It's not a smooth process. That's why, in all seriousness, the best way to buy foreclosures is really cash, and be done with it. And it's just because once you involve a lender and trying to get loans, conventional will go through almost. But when people call me and they're like, well, can I get 0 down and all this, and I want to buy this foreclosure, we're chuckling on air, folks. We just kind of roll our eyes, and I have to educate them on the likelihood, because I can never say never. Mm-hmm. And I know, and like you said, some FHA loans based on it's in good condition. It's going to meet the requirements that the appraiser is going to state. But you got to find that diamond in the rough on these.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But funny story. So in a couple weeks, I got invited to a housewarming at that same property. The buyer said, "Hey, I'm doing a housewarming birthday, and I would love for you to be there to see what I've done to it." And I was like, "Well, yeah, absolutely." He said, "I can't wait to see your face when you walk in there." So I'm
before and after,
because I already know the before. It was like, ugh. So I'm intrigued to see what he did to it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Candace, I know you don't deal as much with the type of thing that Mindy does.
Mm-hmm. Nobody does really. It's fine.
Nobody. Yeah. But you do it a lot with a first-time home buyer show. And so, forgetting about this more exotic financing for a minute, what do you do to make them comfortable with the financing process? Because they haven't been through this before. And even someone buying for the second, third time, they haven't been through it in several years, probably.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what's your approach to that?
I can't stress enough how important it is to get them to a lender such as David that knows what he's doing and knows the different loan products to tell them about and to completely lay out, what they're going to need and what each loan is going to, what they're going to need to bring to the table, what they're going to be able to look at whenever they're out looking. That is the biggest thing. Get them to a qualified lender.
So, but the first thing you want to know for them and for you is how much can David qualify him for? What can they buy?
Exactly. Right? I mean, they have to know that, but they also, and not only just how much can he qualify them for, what are they comfortable with as far as what they're going to bring for a down payment? And David, or there's other lenders,
right?
As well.
Whoever it happens to be.
But a good lender such as David will say, "You need this for this. Are you comfortable with that? You have a 20% down payment, and that's your nest egg. Are you comfortable with putting all that down and your payment being here, or he can explain all these different variables to them, and to where they are not going in and surprised whenever it's time to.
I guess where I was going with that, you don't want to be showing them $300,000 houses.
No,
when
and
David
then they can only
approve them
get
for
200. Right,
Can I
exactly.
jump in and even say something?
It's never
not just
stopped you
the
before
buy-
whether you can or not.
Exactly.
Go ahead, David.
So, as we know, in the past few years, there's been a lot of new realtors to jump into general real estate,
Sure.
being an agent, and then ultimately some make it, some don't. So, the other caveat is not just what the monthly payment that they're comfortable with. Okay, so that's great. We arrive hypothetically, let's say it's $1,600 a month. I have to communicate with you, the realtor, and say, based on credit score, debt to income, if they go up to hypothetically, $250,000 or $200,000, they can only utilize an FHA loan. They do not qualify conventional. They can't qualify conventional. Maybe due to debt to income, they cannot qualify USDA, which is much less than an FA. So now I look at you as the realtor and make sure you understand if there is peeling paint on that house, if the steps don't have handrails, just some of the basic, the seller's going to have to agree to do that. You're going to have to work it in negotiations. But what is so tough is I give that information up front, and hypothetically, I don't tell them that they're an FHA buyer, and they go put a contract in on a challenging home. And then I'm having that after the fact. So the realtor always wants to know, oh, okay.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
And, experienced realtors know those things as well. I even have a list of, it's just a PDF document. I send out to agents and to buyers of all the things an appraiser may look for at the property in which the seller is going to be responsible for fixing, whether FHA, VA, or USDA. So that's the other area that I run into is everybody gets excited and goes, hey, we got an offer accepted, great. And I'm like, okay, great. Give me the address. And, I'll jump on Realtor.com, Zillow, and immediately pull up the pictures. And I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And I'll share this for driving down the road. Just happened over in Kentucky. All worked out well. I look at the pictures. There's peeling wallpaper on the walls. There's challenges. And I'm like, are these old photos or current? And the realtor's like, no, those are current. The sellers let the buyers come in on a long weekend, and the buyer went in and just fixed all of it, which his uncle was a contractor. Home appraised for $20,000 more than they purchased it for when I actually ordered the appraisal. It worked out well, but that's the other caveat. I need to direct which loan program this buyer has as an option.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I've actually heard of people, not that I know anybody that would do something like this, that have actually taken handrails down.
To keep buyers from
or so the appraiser / inspector finds it quite easily. Something because they've got to find something.
Yes, that's interesting.
I don't know who would have done that.
I have no idea. It's something I heard someplace.
Weird. Probably read it on the internet.
Yeah, I read that
on the internet.
Yeah, I was Googling something.
Yeah. Internet's always true.
I thought Candace, with your recent health struggles, I thought about you. I was talking with a local attorney whose husband has been ill, and last night, and she said it's always bad an attorney who knows how to do research. So me and Dr. Google have this all figured out, and I told him and what they're doing for him now, and it is a serious illness. But she said, you're going to be great, except according to Dr. Google, you're going to be mentally retarded. So, and if I said it, a couple of well-known people in the community too. But anyway, I guess we better pay some bills while we're at it. We haven't done that yet. So, Charlie Butler Real Estate Show brought to you by Churchill Mortgage and David Crow. David is the regional director for Kentucky and Indiana. So any of your needs, your mortgage needs through there, as we always say, whether you heard it before us or you hear it every morning on WGBF, Churchill sponsors Dave Ramsey, has for 25 plus years. Dave endorses them. They are a debt-free company that obviously Dave likes that, so.
Oh, yeah.
But and they'll give you the 800 number. However, if you want local service and very good local service, actually, call David, and David will discuss with you the
right.
And David, how can they get a hold of you?
Folks out there, you want to get pre-approved to buy, and in the market we're going to get into with lower rates coming as. For a refinance, please give me a call on my cell phone or shoot me a text, 270-222-0676.
And David, what are the rates right now?
Right now, we're moving, nationwide. We're now, since the election, we're moving into the sixes again. We'd actually peaked up over, as a nation, and they were advertising over 7%. You were seeing that 7.125.
But you're always one of the most competitive. That's
absolutely. So right now we are in the sixes. We're hoping to be back in the fives in the real near future. But it's going in the election, it really kind of screwed up the markets there for a while. So all of us lenders were a little frustrated, but things are shaking out, and they'll continue to shake out as we move into December.
Right.
So.
Candace, you were kind of our expert on the after the lawsuit with the buyers.
Buyer's agency.
We want to say
agreement.
agency, but
Buyer
yeah.
agency, yes.
Right.
So from what you've seen, and from what I know, you see more with our agency, anybody else. How is that working?
I think that agents are kind of they're getting better about educating their buyers and their sellers. At first, everybody was confused about what was going on. I mean, we were all like, "What? How are we going to ask these people to pay us a commission whenever historically, they didn't necessarily pay this. The seller's agent was paying us, and it was just that was not made clear. I think that now agents are starting to understand how to educate their buyers and their sellers, and I think that it's working out. And then there are also, there's forms that you can, whenever you meet a buyer and you say, look, I have this form that I need you to sign. This explains compensation. But I also will negotiate for you. If you cannot pay that, I can negotiate that for you. And here's the form that we can submit. And that kind of makes it a little less scary for buyers. And then, explaining to sellers, that whenever, I'm listing something and you're paying me a commission, you're paying me that commission. I'm taking a portion of that commission and I'm paying the buyer's agent. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to get you more exposure for your house. Basically, it's another advertising fee. And the
buyer is, if the buyer doesn't get paid, they're not going to show your house.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So this is another way that I'm going to take this commission that you're paying me, and I'm going to pay it to a buyer's agent as part of marketing fees, that are going to help get your house sold. So I think that a lot of agents are taking the same stance on that. And I mean, I know you're seeing it a lot and you're seeing it. So, are you guys kind of seeing the same thing as far as?
I think I have. I think there was a lot of confusion at first, especially agent to agent. Like, what do we do? What am I supposed to send you? But what I find is I just included in the conversation with my buyers. I had some friends that were looking a couple weeks ago, and the husband texted me. He's like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I was looking at this place on Zillow, and then it connected me to somebody, and it said I had to sign this form." I was like, "Okay." So we had the conversation. I said, "Here's what it's about. Don't worry about it. We'll get to it, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll sign it, whatever." As long as you don't make a big deal about it, and just give people the information.
Clearly explain
explain it. There doesn't seem to be any issue.
Yeah.
And I saw Bobby just got a text, and it was Norm.
Oh
man, Norm is.
We haven't
pissed.
mentioned. We haven't. Yeah, Norm is not happy. So okay, Norm, we still got a minute left, so it's all yours. Also brought to you by Bossy Title, and the good folks at Bossy Title, including the CFO, which is Norm, and his assistant Phil, and Norm is the chief Frenchie officer there, and Frenchie does not stand for French kiss; it stands for French bulldog. Well, yeah, I just had to make that clear, Candace. But the Bossy Title's number is. Put my glasses on; I'll be able to see it.
Oh well. Cheated. That's what you always say to me whenever I have to look up the team number.
42 area code 812-421-4000. Call the good folks at Bossy Title today for all your search needs and for your closing needs. They do a fantastic job, and they are the official title company of the Charlie Butler Show. And I'm sure it's about time to wrap up, isn't it? So I was hoping we had more time, but Bobby says no. And he's going to cut us off here. So for Mindy Malinsky, Candace DeArmond, I did say Malinsky. Oh,
You sure did. You just did it. You just did it.
For Mindy Woodward, Candace DeArmond, David Crow, this is Charlie Butler. Have a great Sunday.
This program has been paid for by the Charlie Butler team. From the Kate Foppel Ford Studios, this is Newstalk 1280 WGBF.